This is Back for Blood. We're here on Xbox Series X taking a look at this cooperative zombie survival game that is essentially Left 4 Dead 3 in all but the name. So what we're getting here on Series X is a 4K resolution, mostly a native 4K resolution. It might have some dynamic angles depending on how crazy things get, but for the most part, yeah, it's actually running smooth and looking very good at 60 FPS with HDR support. It does have cross-platform play, so it's got crossplay between the different platforms. We've seen all of them kind of working together, whether that's in quick play or in some of the more intense versus action in the game. So first up, we've got a campaign. Then there is the versus mode where you kind of battle. It's not like your traditional Left 4 Dead versus. This is more like segments of the map have been created, and you're fighting in little squads. I hope to show off a little bit of that towards the end of the video and the review. So we also have VRR support, which is kind of great to have in regards to keeping the fluidity level working very smoothly. It's nice to have that option available as well. And yeah, it's kind of a neat experience with the crossplay and the co-op that is present. So you can play the game solo. You can play entirely by yourself if you'd like to. Just be wary that for some reason your stats and stuff don't really seem to count if you do so. And you will have bots that are supporting you while you play. The focus of this is to play typically the online multiplayer with others, working together in a squad of 4, whether you do quick play matches or you aim to set up a particular run with your friends. I wish it was a little bit easier to set up like quick lobbies and stuff without the private lobbies, because the private lobbies have a similar sort of issue in regards to, you know, kind of having stats and stuff kind of go across, so that's a bit odd. Other than that, though, the game is actually a ton of fun. I've had a blast working through the campaign. It's actually really quite chunky with a variety of different acts that are a part of it. And it's got these neat cards that kind of impact what's going on with your experience. So that's something I wanted to talk about as well. So the game has this card system. So with this card system, you are able to pick up cards that will impact your experience and your run. So the runs are kind of like broken down to acts. So like Act 1 would be like a run that you do, for say. And you know, you either survive it or you don't, and you can continue from a point. So say you die halfway through Act 1. You can, you know, matchmake and you can start from that point again. Not an issue. But what's neat is the card system that's present. So you see these cards, we got corruption cards. So these change how your game is going. You might have a new boss attack, you might have like a weird situation, there might be like a weird unnatural fog going on. Stuff like that kind of mixes up your game. Because the whole point of a game like Left 4 Dead, which is, you know, what Back 4 Blood is very similar to, is the replayability. And I think you could sit here and you could work through the story over and over and over again. Now, the game does have some narrative bits that are a little heavier than what Left 4 Dead does, so that might get a little repetitive hearing some of the story bits, but, you know, the characters have great banter, and the banter itself actually changes too, depending on the scenario. So that's kind of interesting as well, and I quite liked that element of the experience. So yeah, the card system, kind of neat. And you also, not only corruption cards, but you get your own cards. So every time you like finish an area, you get an extra card. You have like a default sort of player card as well. And it just further mixes up the action and keeps things fresh. I think that's really quite interesting, and just the system, again, that adds a lot of replayability to this one so that you can continue to do your battle multiple times over, and I think have some fun with it. Now, to talk about the versus a bit more, that is not your traditional Left 4 Dead experience. I kind of, you know, wish that they offered that as well, but it is kind of neat too. You sit there and you do these round-based battles, and it's basically like a best-of-3 scenario. 4v4, one side plays as, you know, kind of the survivors, or the cleaners, I guess you could say, and the other side is the special infected, or the Ridden special, whatever, you know, the more intense zombies, even though we're not using the Z word here. And you just kind of battle back and forth. There's like skill things that can kind of, like, you pick the cards and stuff still, because you can have a deck for Swarm and you can have a deck for your regular players. You know, you create your own decks with the cards you get, and there's these supply runs you do in your main little base, and we'll show those off a little bit later. And you basically, you know, you use these sort of, you know, custom cards in order to get advantages, and it's just a neat system that you work through these supply runs in order to get points, in order to be more powerful against the foes that you're taking on. And I'm not in any particular rush to finish the level. I'm just with these guys kind of, you know, showing off gameplay and talking about it. And I think visually it actually is, quite impressive, and just in regards to the level of depth and detail within the style of the environments as well. I think it looks really good. So yeah, going back to what I was talking about, the competitive play is really neat because those cards are going to change things over time, especially with how people compete and battle with one another. I think the card system is kind of fascinating, and I just like, again, I'm leading into the fact that this will add a ton of replayability because it just changes up your runs every time, and runs are a big part of this. So going back to the regular campaign stuff, every time you play the level, it's going to feel different. Sometimes you get like mobbed with special infected, actually to the point where I'm kind of like, the balancing sometimes, but a lot of it has to deal with your teammates too, who you get, how you work together, your effectiveness. You can see all the different levels of the game at the bottom, and trust me, it does take several hours to actually work through this even a first time, and then there's like higher difficulties, which I think would be way too insane to do. But yeah, your team does matter. You could blow through like a really intense level really fast, or you might fail a few times, and it's really up to your squad and kind of the choices you make. And we're going to kind of show the transition. Also, it's kind of weird at the end of matches where you have to like wait. It creates a lot of unnecessary waiting, and I don't understand that. You'll also we'll pick cards really fast, and then we have to sit there and wait for someone in order to use like the store thing in order to like buy stuff for our characters. And I thought that was really quite weird how that's done. I wonder if I can snag the Holly character there. Nice. So you see I got my deck, a custom deck with all my cards. Pretty cool. And we'll get rolling here. And all the characters, different personalities, and there's like 8 different characters that are present, and the characters have different abilities and stuff like that, which is quite neat. And you're probably wondering why I only have like the 4 cards available, or the 4 characters available. And that's because I played the first act in single player, and none of the progress counted, which I thought was really weird. But this is the section here, so I kind of pick what I want. Do I want more health? Do I want to increase the team capacity? You get so many cards because, I joined in progress, so it's a little bit different. And you can see I've got some slightly better cards that increase my, ability to kind of fight back and have more, damage or ammo. And everyone's got different cards, and you're going to have more. So you go to the second round, you're going to have way different systems. And gameplay-wise, I think as you've been seeing, that this feels very much like Left 4 Dead. You go around through the levels, reaching the checkpoints, trying to survive. You fight off hordes, they're special infected. This one does also have bosses to it, which is a little bit different. And I don't think the bosses were necessarily too hard, but it's more about how your team handles stuff. And I thought that's really neat. So you're fighting lots of infected, you're battling, you got all these points, and it's just kind of like this neat system of, survival and battling and using these abilities in order to be more effective as you, battle away across the different environments. And I think that's really cool. Is there like a gun drop somewhere around here? I would prefer to pick up some new weapons. Sometimes you get like a weapon kind of drop off at the beginning. And the funny little sayings on the walls kind of appeared, and they got little joke things, and I think they've actually crafted what for me is actually a pretty fun game. I find it to be enjoyable, and something I could probably sit here multiple times over and play and play and play and have a fun time with. And it's it's best in co-op, right? Having the group of 4 people coming together to fight stuff, I think that really makes it quite fun. And it's really quite neat. I should also mention, continuing with the technical elements, that there is actually an FOV slider, so you can adjust that, along with some HDR and brightness settings, and your motion blur selections as well. And I think that's kind of cool. You can see the different input options here for the controller. And then you can go to gameplay, and there's lots of adjustments for what you're hearing, what you're seeing, whether you want like certain audio, accessibility options. There's a lot of that stuff kind of present. And your party invites and everything like that, and hearing people in game, like game chat is a big part of this, obviously, co-op wise, which I've muted, due to obvious reasons. But yeah, that's kind of the system of gameplay. You go through these different levels, you do these runs, and you try to survive. And then, you use those supply run points to get better cards or unlocks. It's not just cards, those supply runs. They kind of work like mini battle passes that you're constantly getting spat out at. There's usually like 3 at a time that you work through with 8 steps or so in each. And they can also unlock things like cosmetics that can then change how your characters look, and other things like that, or weapon skins. And it seems like they're almost just getting started with that too. I can see the complexity of these systems growing over time. And it's a gory game, and it's quite bloody. There's intense action in this as you fight off these monsters and try to, you know, survive. And I wish I had a melee weapon because that's a lot of fun too. I've just got like the secondary shotgun thing. The bots are so weird in their choices. Speaking of bots, these bots are weird in this game. Sometimes they help you, but like they will not really like kill or shoot anything. And it just seems like they're not the best bots in the world. I was a little surprised. I was like, huh. Because it didn't stick out to me as much as being so annoying in the actual, you know, kind of beta experience when I first played that. I was like, oh, okay. And it just seems like the bots aren't necessarily the best in this one, which is kind of neat. But I like the cast, I like the characters, and I want to talk also about the visuals a bit more. You know, we talked about the resolution and the frame rate and whatnot, and it seems to all run quite smooth. You know, ran through the whole thing, killed tons of zombies and infected and monsters. And sorry, we're not using the Z word, the Ridden. You know, we killed an absolute ton of them, or at least I did. And it all looks really good. Like, I think the visual quality of the game is very nice. It's very polished. It looks, you know, like a next-gen version of Left 4 Dead, and I quite appreciated that. I think it's relatively smooth. It's got some fun tricks up its sleeve. It's got some crazy characters, and it can feel, you know, at times overwhelming, and it can be really difficult. And I think it'll give you a good challenge if you want to have that sort of challenge. There's the currency system. I mean, if you didn't notice the currency system, you're basically, you know, using that to buy stuff in between the rounds, which is kind of important. But yeah, I think it's just got some really gruesome, grotesque creatures. The regular Ridden that you have are quite varied in terms of the different options that you see. Like, there's all kinds of different looking Ridden out there. Some with like yoga pants on. Oh, I fell into the water? You've got to be kidding me on that one. Yeah, sometimes that kind of pops up. They might be able to find me in a little bit here, so we'll just kind of watch this perspective here. But you know, it's neat, and there's like secondary objectives you might get too. Like we have the blood samples one, you can choose to do that, and you know, they mix up the objectives a lot as well. So this one you're kind of like pinning stuff to get sent off. Sometimes you're fighting a big monstrous boss. Sometimes you're moving through areas and patching things up. Sometimes you're doing other stuff. Like, you're not just survivors in this. You're actually people that are here doing like missions, and you're trying to help the surviving population, and you're, you know, battling. And there I am. I'm on the ground there. That's kind of cool. But I don't know, I think they've got some neat mechanics in place. They've got some fun characters, some different abilities, they've got some different challenges to it, they've got a range of different objectives and goals for you to accomplish as you battle to try to survive. Like, the campaign felt quite varied, in my opinion. Even going back and doing some other stuff multiple times, you know, it does still feels relatively fresh, which I think is kind of cool. And something that's challenging to do in the modern era, because people expect, you know, so much content. You look at the original Left 4 Dead games, and it's like, there's not necessarily a lot there. But you replay them over and over and over again. And I think this one's got, like, a similar style to it, that you could, you know, potentially play this so many times around and have a great time with the others that you come across. And I think that's sort of fun. Ooh. Yeah, this area is always fun. It kind of pays for itself if you didn't know that as well. And then you kind of have like a heads-up detector kind of option. So I could be like, hey, go here and do this. And I wonder if I'm just going to keep switching weapons so you can see different stuff. And I'm going to top off too. I mean, I used the toolkit to get this open here. But yeah, you got your different weapons too. And you see the HUD very similar to like a Left 4 Dead layout if you're doing that. I mean, you should feel right at home if you're coming from that franchise or a similar one. You got your pipe bombs, you got your Molotovs, you got your health packs, you got like special tools, barbed wire and stuff like that. A lot less defending in this one, you know, defending spots, a lot more just like running through and shooting things and taking on these monsters. And you know, varied environments, they take you to some crazy places like a cabin in the woods, or, you know, a big yacht, or this infested mayhem place, or the deep city. And you know, they also do a really good job of kind of presenting this world that feels as if it's been, you know, kind of lived in, if that makes sense. Like, you have people living in it. There's actually NPCs that go around too, so it doesn't feel like some kind of empty land. You're actually fighting these different, you know, fighting for these people or fighting with them. I think that's kind of cool. And you go through the same kind of area, so you might go down the main street one or two times and notice that it changes a little bit, and then you go off to a new area. That just gives you a good sense of like, hey, you're actually kind of moving through locations and stuff, and I think that's nice. Like I said, you can quick play it, you can take it slow, you can do whatever you want, and I think that's kind of neat. And I think we're going to continue on at this point by jumping into the multiplayer and showing that off, so we're going to go and do that. So this is the fort area that I mentioned earlier. it's your base of operations. It's where you invite your friends. It's where you go do stuff like the supply runs. So, see, unlock some supply points. I can unlock some things, you know, get some cool little extras, and you got the 3 different areas that you can do. Got your different cleaners. Again, they're locked because of, I don't know, it didn't count or whatever. Then your armory with your different, like, gun skins. It seems like they're leaving a lot of room for that. And then we've got, like, the different character skins, and I've got, like, battle hardens, there's plucky and pink, and then there's other options too. It's like you can do item sets, so you can do like more personalized customization. And again, I think this is kind of like a work in progress in regards to adding more of that stuff into the supply lines over time. You got your decks, custom decks, all these cards, all these options, multiple like creations you can do for your decks, and then a bunch of different ways to play. We're gonna queue up a swarm, but you got your solo, which again is kind of weird because it doesn't, like, you know, it doesn't quite count anything, and I find that so strange. But you got this little camp where you can kind of, like, you know, practice with all of the guns to see how they shoot with weird looking smiley face monster things. Well, they're kind of angry looking faces, because we could run in there and show that off. Look how mad they are. It's like, arr, oh. Yeah, kind of just a cool spot to chill out. You can stand in the fire and it goes, yeah, all burning and stuff. Oh, and the game's got cinematic points too, which might surprise you. There are actually some cinematic elements, and then you like a ring where you can actually go and like box and fight your friend, which is kind of neat, you know, stuff like that. And it's just an area where you kind of get to chill out. It's just a social hub, right? And you got this guy in his weird clipboard of stuff. He doesn't do anything. Easy as pie, but like, what do you do? What do you contribute? That's what I want to know. But yeah, kind of fun, kind of unique. And now we'll show off some of the multiplayer action. So yeah, here is the multiplayer, and what are the odds that we end up on the same area that we were doing the other thing in? Anyways, there are a good range of different missions and areas that you can fight in doing the multiplayer, and it's something that I found really quite challenging, kind of intriguing, as you fended off waves of enemies and kept having to get creative in trying to survive as long as possible in order to survive and to win the rounds, because you basically have to get a better time than your opponent. It seems well balanced, it seems to be quick and intense, and, you know, it's fun. It really is something you just play over and over again and keep matchmaking with. And like I mentioned, like, the matchmaking in this game is really quick. It works really well with the crossplay. I was very pleased with what they did there in regards to the, you know, having the crossplay available, being able to, you know, kind of work in squads like that. I quite like it. I think it's kind of neat. And again, very different that we're able to have this era, you know, unlike back when Left 4 Dead released, where everybody can kind of play together, you can do co-op together, and you can have a great time with it. So yeah, it's kind of a challenging, intriguing, and fun. But that's the overall experience, you know. It's a game that you can spend quite a bit of time playing. It's got a lot of unique challenges to it and different things that you can engage in. And it's something that you can replay over and over and over again. And I do seriously believe that it has, you know, a healthy amount of content to it. I was pleasantly surprised by what it, you know, delivers and what it, you know, kind of has gameplay-wise going on in it. And I think you'll find it to be intriguing and fun too. It's just a really enjoyable game. It offers good challenge, some really intense challenge if you want to take it, you know, even further. But, you know, it is fairly balanced. I just wish that, you know, some smaller things here or there could be fine-tuned. And, you know, I do hope we get traditional Left 4 Dead multiplayer at some point down the road. I would quite like that. I know a lot of people would as well. But I think the campaign's good. I think it's got a neat sort of story to it. I think this is Left 4 Dead 3 and everything but the name and what we've been waiting for. And I just hope it has the same good sort of longevity that that game has. You know, the reliance on online multiplayer might be something of a hindrance for some folks, but, you know, for the most part, I actually find that this, you know, kind of runs well. It looks smooth, it looks good, it provides a lot of gameplay for you to enjoy. It's action-packed, it is full of surprises, it's unique. And I had a great time sitting there just blasting away, playing with a pal and some other people online that we ran into. And your mileage will vary, you know, in regards to how difficult things are. I do think some of the balancing could be a bit better. They go a little crazy with some of the special infected sometimes, and that can be a little rough. But, you know, I haven't really faced any sort of real issues. It all seems to run perfectly fine. I did have, I guess I should mention, a couple crashes, but only in that camp area that we were at. I never experienced any of them during actual gameplay or doing any sort of, like, multiplayer or anything like that. But it was something that I thought, hey, you know what, I should mention. And I also think I should show off a bit of the actual, like, you know, infected gameplay in a sec here. So yeah, I think you can have a lot of fun playing this game. I think you can enjoy it with a group of friends. I think it offers a healthy amount of content right off the bat. It's definitely a little bit more than I even expected. And I think it, you know, kind of touches that Left 4 Dead niche that we've had sitting here open and empty for so many years. I'm very happy that we finally get to experience this. Again, for me, it's Left 4 Dead 3 and everything but the name. And I think it's just got a good cast of characters, good campaign to it, neat multiplayer, something that you can play multiple times over and over. And assuming they do expand it in creative ways like they seem to be planning, I think they've actually put together a real gem here. And I look forward to seeing where this goes over time, because it is a blast to me, and something that is quite good and enjoyable.